Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Louise Calix Florestal and you're watching Faith to Faith. I just want to ask you if you would please like, comment, subscribe to this channel so that you can continue to get these videos whenever I make them out. And if you have anyone that you think that this video would be relevant for, please share. So I hope that you had a great week. I hope that you and yours are well, and I'm praying that you're going to have a great week coming up as well. So we're going to get right into it. So I want to tell you the inspiration for this video that I'm making today. I was on social media and I happened to read a post from a young lady in one of the groups that I'm in, and it truly kind of touched me. And I'm going to read just a small portion of it. Of course, I'm not going to say who it is. I don't even know actually, but I'm just going to read a small portion. This person writes, I have these moments where I feel like I'm questioning God in many areas of my life. I feel stupid really being there for someone through difficult times to just go about like I never existed. I keep thinking, was I a bad woman to this man? Why did he do this to me? Is God hearing me through the tears? I have a tough exterior, but my heart is tired. I can't take another heartache, and I feel my guard going back up. That's a snippet of the post that was written. And I read through this post and I was thinking, man, haven't we all been there where we feel like we give our all to someone in a relationship and then to only feel like we've been betrayed or stabbed in the back, or that person doesn't give out the same energy that we're giving. And it really made me think, because I can understand how she was asking, why is God allowing this to happen in my life? And I just felt really impressed to do a videos for those who particularly are single and going through that season in their life, and some lessons that I personally have learned, because up until the end of 2020, I myself was a single woman. So I always pretty much vowed to just always remember those who are single and what they're going through. You know, there's a proverb or there's a saying that says you have to kiss a lot of frogs until you get your prince or your princess. I say that to, for all the guys that are watching this video. Shout out to the men that are watching. But yeah, so as it says, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to get to your prince or princess. I don't always subscribe to that saying, because it almost feels like you necessarily have to go through a lot of misery before you find the right one. But I have to say there is a bit of reality in that saying, because for me, when I was a single woman, I really tried my best to operate in a lot of wisdom, to just go about and make the best decisions and to be very strategic about the choices that I was making. And I thought I'm pretty good at this, and yet I had some heartbreak in my journey. And sometimes it feels like, the heartbreak might be inevitable because you don't know what you don't know, and it is a learning experience. But the reason that I want to do this video is that there are some universal truths or universal principles that I think that might be applicable to anyone that is going through this, that might be helpful. And the goal is that you learn some things that will help you make better decisions, to be a better discerner of the person that you're dating, or whoever you're trying to decide who that you want to be in your life forever. So I hope that it's helpful, and I hope that it can help anyone really confused about why God allows some of this stuff to happen. Because I know that was the first thing that I did, is I questioned God, like, okay, I know I made this choice, but why would you allow me to experience so much? Why didn't you stop me or warn me or do anything of that nature? And it is while going through the experience of learning that I came to understand God's heart and God's mind when it comes to these things. So as a foundational scripture, reference, I'm going to be connecting a lot to the story of King Saul in the Bible, and why King Saul is so applicable to this experience is because a lot of us have dated King Sauls, okay? Which means we're dating someone that looks like a king, that has the appearance of a king, but in actuality, their character is not able to maintain the kingdom. Okay, so they look right, they talk right, but their character is not that which represents a true king or a true queen. So that's why I'm really going to be focusing on the story of King Saul in this. I'm also going to be making a lot of references to planting a crop, a garden, whatever it may be. I don't know much about this arena, so if you are an expert, please have grace on me. But this is what was put on my heart as I was thinking about how I'm going to present this thing to you. So sometimes we don't realize that the type of people that we're attracting is based on what's in the soil of our hearts, what's in the ground of our hearts. Because in actuality, like attracts like, and when I started recognizing a pattern in the type of people that I was attracting, I went to go examine my own heart. And sometimes that's what we need to do. Examine our own hearts. So that's why we're using the garden references, because that's really about heart issues. What's in the ground of your heart? So I'm going to start with the first principle. Basically, what I'm going to be doing is like putting in the conditions or explaining the conditions that happen to set us up to date Sauls. And unfortunately, some people end up marrying their Saul, which is really tough. But what are the conditions? What are the set conditions that set you up for attracting a Saul or someone who's just looks right but is not walking right, and they end up breaking your heart? What is the condition? So the first principle, we said we're talking about crops, planting, is that it starts with the foundation, which is one, the soil of inadequacy. The soil of inadequacy. I want to talk about my own experience. I want to talk about right now about a little bit about me to show how I had the soil of inadequacy. Growing up, I always felt that there was some kind of greatness on my life that God had established there. I wasn't sure what it was that He wanted me to do. I wasn't sure what that greatness meant, but I knew it was there. But because the world standards are so much in our face all the time, to me, I said that the standard of what success is what the world says it is. So it's someone who's super ambitious, who's super hungry and motivated, and will climb the ranks, will make the money, will do what needs to get done to basically get the bag, which is the term that the young people use these days, to get the bag. Now, although I knew I had great potential on my life, I could feel it. I felt it as a God-given thing. I didn't think I had what was necessary to reach that potential for some reason. I just felt that I wasn't motivated enough. I wasn't ambitious enough. I wasn't hungry enough for that. Money didn't motivate me. Fame, fortune, these things didn't motivate me. And for some reason, I felt the people that were most successful had kind of a hunger for these things that made them get to that state. And I just didn't have it. Here's a quick example. When I was in law school, I was on break, and literally I was flying out for spring break to visit my family in Florida. I really needed a break badly. So I was flying out, I was on the plane, and I was studying, and an older gentleman noticed the books that I was reading and just started striking up a conversation with me about just law school and what I'm studying. And the conversation got around to what he does. And he told me he's a moneyologist, okay? Completely unique. I've never heard of that. I probably definitely asked him what it was. And he basically told me he studied how money works, how people make money, all this type of stuff. Just really interesting stuff. Okay. Now, I was like, wow. So we had a great conversation. And then we parted ways. That's it. I probably sat there kicking myself while on the plane because I'm like, Louise, why wouldn't you even try to find this person on Facebook or make a connection, network or something like that? You met this interesting person that was talking about being a moneyologist, and you don't think you need any information pertaining to money? Why wouldn't you do that? This is the type of stuff that I would do because it was my personality that I didn't like anything fake or superficial. I didn't want to strike up a networking connection or some kind of a relationship based on just what can you give me. I just didn't want to do that. I didn't like doing that stuff. And this is this type of stuff that I felt would hold me back from being great because I just wasn't ambitious. I wasn't super hungry for the great success of this life. So for me, I thought, in my estimation of what I needed in a man, I thought that I needed the total opposite of myself. I needed a super ambitious go-getter, very intelligent, alpha male who was going to help me get the bag that I couldn't get because I just wasn't motivated enough. That's what I thought I needed. And all that was founded in a sort of feeling that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't adequate enough to reach the potential that I felt that God put in my heart. And it's really strange because I came to realize that that aspect of me was a God given gift. I have this kind of discernment where I will not make connections that's not God ordained. And just because something looks good doesn't mean it's profitable. Okay, maybe this person had an interesting background, but that didn't mean I had to connect with this person because maybe they're not for me to connect with. And I've always had a good inkling of that, who was for me and who was not for me. And I didn't see it as a gift. I didn't see it as discernment. I saw it as a flaw. So what I thought I needed was someone to balance out and complete me where I was lacking. The interesting thing is that this was the setup for the Israelites getting King Saul as their king. So I'm gonna find this verse. Okay, this is in First Samuel, First Samuel 8. Okay, First Samuel 8. I want to read real quickly how King Saul became anointed as king. So in verse 4, First Samuel 8, verse 4, it says, "Finally, all the elders of Israel met at Ramah to discuss the matter with Samuel. Look, they told him, you are now old, and your sons are not like you. Give us a king to judge us like all the other nations have." Samuel was displeased with their request and went to the Lord for guidance. And the Lord said, "Do everything they say to you," the Lord replied, "for they are rejecting me, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer." So here Israel is, and God is their leader, God is their king, but they looked at all the other nations around them and they realized that every nation had a man, a physical representation as their king, and they realized that they didn't have it. So they felt like there was something missing and they felt inadequate. And because of that, they said, "Hey, give us a king." There is nothing like feeling inadequate to set you up to meet the wrong people. That could be in romantic relationships as well as friendships. But since we're focusing on romantic relationships, there is nothing like feeling inadequate, that you need somebody to fill in the holes that are missing in you. to set you up to meet someone that is not God ordained for your life. You know that advice that they give you that if you're going to the grocery store, never go empty because you end up buying junk that you would not have bought if you were full? It's the same concept. If you are not full on the inside, where you understand who you are, what your purpose is, what you've been established on this earth to do, and your connection with God and who He is to you, that you are His, then you are just set up to meet people that will not have the type of character and integrity that you need. It's like you going to the grocery store and eating junk because you are so hungry. So the soil of inadequacy was the first thing, was the first foundation that set the Israelites to get the results of Saul as king. And we'll go into the results later. It was pretty devastating, but this is the first thing, the soil of inadequacy. Okay, so as I told you, I myself was feeling inadequate in my life. I was feeling complete because I felt like I'm never gonna reach my potential because I'm just not motivated. I'm too casual. I'm only low key ambitious. I'm not one of those people. I'm pretty casual and I'm laid back. So, and some of these things, these worldly things, don't motivate me. Like, I kind of don't care in a way for them. So I thought that was a flaw instead of being a gift that it was. Okay. The second thing, the second thing, okay, so we talked about the soil. Every soil has what? What goes into the soil? A seed. A seed goes into the soil. So the second thing is the seed of distrust watered by works. The seed of distrust watered by works. Let me explain that. Now, it goes much deeper than me feeling inadequate. I also had a seed of distrust when it came to the Lord. And the seed of distress came from what I was seeing with my eyes. That's why the Bible really says that we walk by faith and not by sight. Because when you look at what you see, it will really lead you to conclusions and a mindset that's incorrect. Okay. So let me tell you what I was seeing as a young single woman. Okay. So going through, and growing up as a young woman, I saw a lot of other people dating, meeting people, getting to relationships and things of that nature. And that wasn't necessarily happening for me. It's not because there weren't interested people, but it just felt like no one felt right to me. It just felt like I couldn't meet anybody that kind of clicked with me. I would be interested in someone for a little bit and then I would grow disinterested and then I'd be like, okay, I'm moving on. And it's interesting. I later learned about myself. I would take the Myers-Briggs personality test and I recommend anyone. I mean, it's not a spiritual assessment, but it's so good, guys. I would take it because it helps you understand yourself. And as I took it, they were so accurate with my personality. They even said it would be hard for me to find my match just because I have a pretty rare personality. It's like 1% of the population. So it just feels like I don't find a lot of people that match me. There are other personalities, but they kind of have a bigger pool of people to match with, but not me. So everybody I would come to, I'm like, And then if there was somebody I was interested in, they wouldn't be interested in me. So I started to develop a sort of complex that said that if I have such a hard time finding my match, I know that God is not going to find a right match for me. And God is probably going to hook me up with someone who is not compatible with me, someone that I'm really not feeling, somebody that I'm not interested in. And then I didn't want to be in that situation. It's mind boggling to me that I could have such a spirit of unbelief. And you know what? There's no area where we have so much unbelief as in the area of relationships, romantic relationships. If you really sit down and think about what you believe and think about God in this area, you would see that what you think about God is so wrong. And I didn't really take the time to understand my thoughts before, but when I actually started to get it, I realized, wow, you had a lot of unbelief, Louise. I really felt like just because I was failing in finding people that matched me, I felt like, hey, same thing. I mean, God is going to fail and he probably just going to connect me with somebody I'm not interested in. So that is a seed of distrust. And then I said it's a seed of distrust watered by works. What do I mean by that? Well, in my early 30s, there was this nice gentleman, nice older gentleman from the church who we had just a nice relationship. He was just friendly with me and he took just an interest to me and how I'm doing because I was away from family where I was living in another state. And he would always like, he was one of those guys. You guys ever meet these people that are so happily married that they want everybody to be married as well? So he would always check on my love life. Like, what's going on? Are you in a relationship yet? It's been 3 years and there's no one. What's going on? I'm like, oh, no one. Finally, he told me, like, he gave me some advice. He said, Louise, this is what you need to do. You need to like take a chair, an empty chair, and sit across from it in another chair and pretend that this is God sitting in that empty chair. And you sit down and you tell God that it's time, that you need to get into a relationship and you need to find the one and you're ready and it's time and he needs to make it happen. Okay. I know he was trying to be good, but what happened in that situation is that put in a mindset in me that I'm like not trying hard enough. And that's why I'm not in a relationship, okay? And it goes back to me already feeling like not being a go-getter. So it made me feel once again that I'm not working hard enough or focused enough on this whole relationship thing. And I had been kind of like, God, you do your thing, but he said like you need to actually work harder. Maybe you're not praying enough or you're not trying hard enough. So in frustration at the problem, I literally kind of said, fine, I'm going to join a dating website. Okay. I'm going to join a dating website and I'm going to almost like prove it to myself that it's not me. It's God, and also kind of prove it to anybody else that would pry into my business and say you're not doing enough. I'm like, listen, this is what I did. I went so far as to do this, and that. If I'm not in a relationship, it's God, not me. Okay, so that's the mentality I went into it. So that's what I did. I thought I did everything right. I went into a dating website that was associated with my denomination that I'm in. To me, it was like the Christian mingle for my denomination. And I thought that, okay, I was doing everything right. So I'm like, God, this is the setup. You do your thing. I have done my part. You do your thing. You pick someone. Okay. I'm not saying that singles, if you're really wanting to get into a relationship, that you shouldn't put in some activity, go out, do different things. Yes, but you want to make sure and be balanced that everything you do is motivated and inspired by the Lord. Because sometimes you place yourself into situations and then the results are kind of disastrous because it was not inspired by the Holy Spirit. Maybe it was inspired by something else. As in me, this move was inspired by frustration. And it was inspired by me trying to work something out that really is always in the hands and timing of God. And remember, I already had a seed of mistrust, okay, of distrust, and I also had the soil of inadequacy. Sometimes it's not one thing that messes you up. It's the compounding of different little elements. And as you see, I was already there. And this is the same thing that happened to the Israelites. We're going to go back to our verse. Sorry, I'm just switching and getting my verse back again. They, like me, had been looking at the circumstances. They had been looking with their eyes and not of faith. Let me explain what was really going on at that time for them to have even more distrust. Okay. So in 1 Samuel 8 verse 1, it says, as Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons to be the judges over Israel. Joel and Abijah, his oldest sons, held court in Beersheba. But they were not like their father, for they were greedy for money. They accepted bribes and perverted justice. So the Israelites are looking at these sons and they're like, okay, these are the people appointed to be over us when Samuel dies. And they're like, no. Instead of trusting that God is going to work things out, instead of praying about what the next course of action is, since Samuel's sons were wicked, they decided to come up with their own solution, and they decided to put in the work by going to Samuel and literally finding out, hey, this is what we want. They didn't ask God for a solution. They said, this is what we want. When that good intentioned gentleman gave me that advice and I was frustrated, instead of really sitting there and asking God, hey, Lord, what gives? What's going on? What's the point? Is he right? Am I not working hard enough? Or is there something I should be doing? Or is this just about your timing? Should I be waiting in this season? Should I be dating in this season? What should I be doing? I just came up with my own solution, and it brought me closer and closer to the destruction that I experienced. Okay, so the seeds of distrust cause you to put in your own solution instead of asking God for a solution. So that's something, again, that the Israelites fell for, I fell for, and I want you to really examine and not fall for. Okay, the seeds of distrust watered by works. So let's go to the third point. We're moving steadily along. The third point is focusing on artificial light versus the light of the sun. We know that there are some places that are, they don't grow within sunlight. They are, the light that's produced on them is artificial light. Okay. And again, because I don't garden, I do not know the benefits or disadvantages of artificial light. But for the purposes of this video, okay, I'm going to say that the artificial light is not what we want. We want the actual, the real, the organic sunlight to water our plants to get the good harvest that we're looking for. But we focus on artificial light. What does that mean? Well, let me explain in my situation. So I went on that website, as I told you, and honestly, I really wasn't expecting anything. I was kind of waiting to be like, see, I did my part. It's God's fault. You know what I mean? But I happened to meet someone, and he was definitely my Saul. When I met him, remember, I had a type because I had that spirit of inadequacy. I had a type in my head, and this man fulfilled every stereotype of what I thought I wanted in a partner. This man was brilliant. He just was brilliant. He had what I call a master brain, because I love that, because I am someone who's attracted to the mind. I'm attracted to all things mental. So I love the fact that there was a brilliance to him. He was very alpha male, okay? Just an alpha male. He knew exactly what he wanted out of life, and he had no problem to go after it to get whatever he wanted. He was a go-getter, okay? He was all about the hustle. He was all about the grind. He wanted to be someone great, and he wanted to make the money. He wanted to he had so much ambition. It was amazing. Okay. So I felt that I had I had hit the jackpot. Okay. And I should have realized how much distrust I had of God. Because it's almost like I was like, I hit the jackpot. I got to square this away before God changes his mind. It's like I bypassed every level of inspection that I needed to do, despite the fact that it looked good. I needed to inspect, but I didn't. I didn't check really his character. I didn't check his relationship with God, even though, again, he met the superficial standards for which I was looking for. He was of my denomination. He supposedly had a relationship with God, or he respected God, but everything that happened in our relationship told me that he did not. Okay. So literally, I just didn't bring it up to the sunlight. What does the sunlight do? What does the sun do? One aspect of the sun is that you see clearly. It brings revelation. It brings clarity because you just see so clearly under the brightness of the sun. And I just did not bring this man's character into inspection. I was just trying to like, ooh, get hitched to him because I didn't want anything or anyone to take away the jackpot that I got. And it's just a horrible, horrible mindset and mentality. I want to show you how the Israelites did the same thing with Saul. And I want to show you how easy it is to be deceived by such things as the artificial light or the artificial things. Okay, I'm gonna jump to 1 Samuel 10. Okay, so Saul was just anointed by Samuel to be king. So I'm gonna read 1 Samuel 8 verse 10. I'm sorry, 1 Samuel 10. My apologies. 1 Samuel 10 verse 9. So these are some signs that were fulfilled after Saul, was anointed king. It says that as Saul turned and started to leave, God gave him a new heart. And all Samuel's signs were fulfilled that day. When Saul and his servant arrived at Gibeah, they saw a group of prophets coming toward them. Then the Spirit of God came powerfully upon Saul, and he too began to prophesy. When those who knew Saul heard about it, they exclaimed, "What? Is even Saul a prophet? How did the son of Kish become a prophet?" And one of those standing there said, "Can anyone become a prophet no matter who his father is?" So that is the origin of the saying, "Is even Saul a prophet?" When Saul had finished prophesying, he went up to the place of worship. Okay. So basically, guys, these are all the signs that followed Saul after he was anointed. So it would be really easy to just look at this and realize, oh, surely this is a man of God because he's doing all these things. But that's not necessarily the case. When we're discerning and dating someone, we can't just look at the outside signs and think like, hey, this is a man of God. We need to realize that the gifts of God are without reproach. Like, God doesn't take away certain gifts from people just because they're not living as they should. I think about the great singer Whitney Houston, like one of my favorite singers of all time, and she was living a life that was pretty erratic and a little crazy with, unfortunately, her drug use and things of that nature. However, she still had her voice. It's like God didn't take it away. Yes, her voice diminished and became limited later on in years because of the drug abuse and things of that nature. But it wasn't because God took it away. It was because of the consequences of how she was living. But still, you saw so many blessings upon her life. She was producing movies. She was doing amazing things. And again, this is not a judgment thing because I don't know the circumstances of her life, but from what we know, she was still struggling with this drug addiction and so many things of the turmoil of the life that she was living in. So that doesn't necessarily mean that your heart has to be connected to God to perform miracles, to have signs follow you and things of that nature. We look at the experience of Balaam and Balak, one who was a prophet of God, supposedly, but he was doing stuff that he should not have. So we can't focus so much on the appearance of things. We can't focus so much on the compatibility and chemistry that we have with someone. That's great. You know what I mean? And I dare say people need to have compatibility and chemistry with the person they date and fall in love with and get married to. It's essential. Okay. That is not something to throw away. However, these things have to be qualified by character. Okay? You can't just make a decision based on these things because they're so easy to have without having character. Saul had all these things, but no character. Okay? And we don't even understand like what the nature of his relationship with God was even before he was anointed king. We don't know. We really don't know what was the nature of his relationship. And that's how I went about things. I didn't really explore his relationship. I didn't explore, hey, are we compatible enough to live a life of peace and joy where our spiritual, are we spiritually yoked, and yes, you can be in the same denomination with someone, you could be in the same church with someone and be spiritually unequal. You could be unequally yoked even if they have this outward appearance of being yoked, spiritually yoked together. So these things were so pivotal. And I missed it. I didn't inspect, I didn't evaluate. For some reason, I felt like this is it, because I just am usually, I usually don't have that much compatibility with someone. Usually I'm uninterested and I'm just like, okay. But it happened and I felt like this is the first time I've really experienced this. So this has to be it. And in actuality, it wasn't it. He looked like a king. He acted like a king, but he was still a servant, yoked in bondage to sin. Okay, and that could really happen. I also want to also show how quickly and easily the Israelites accepted Saul as their king, and we don't think about that. No one really talks about that. But let's read First Samuel 10 again. We're gonna go further down. And I want to start, let me see. Let's start at 20, okay? I'm going to read that. So Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel before the Lord, and the tribe of Benjamin was chosen by lot. They were choosing by lot who's going to be king, basically. So then he brought each family of the tribe of Benjamin before the Lord, and the family of Matrites was chosen. And finally Saul, son of Kish, was chosen from among them. But when they looked for him, he had disappeared. So they asked the Lord, where is he? And the Lord replied, he is hiding among the baggage. So they found him and brought him out, and he stood head and shoulders above anyone else. Then Samuel said to all the people, this is the man the Lord has chosen as your king. No one in all Israel is like him. And all the people shouted, long live the king. Okay, long live the king. Now, I know you're like, well, of course, God told them this is the king. So, of course, they accepted it. But they didn't ask any questions, before the experience I went through, I wouldn't have looked twice at this verse. But now I'm just like, no, they didn't ask any questions. They didn't ask why Saul was hiding amongst the baggage. They didn't ask, does this mean that he's not ready to be king? Is he ready to take on the responsibilities? What's his character? What's he like? You know what I'm saying? Who is he? Even though, they had this thing that he's anointed king, but they still never took the time to understand what is the nature and character of this man that they are taking on as king. And it's the same way I said, okay, I saw the appearance, but I didn't say, what is the nature? What is the character? What is the essence and being of this person that I think should be the person for me? Okay. So we focus on artificial light versus then, the clarity of the brightness of the sun shining on what we're looking at. So in essence, I'm going to wrap it up. I thought this video was going to be shorter than it really is. Sometimes that happens to me a lot, but I'm going to wrap this up. All right. So at the end of the day, all right, I literally went through this relationship where I thought I had found a King Saul. But in the end, what I found was that I had met a narcissistic man, a man who was emotionally and verbally abusive, a manipulator, selfish, wicked, and ultimately a cheater. So I experienced all these things because I had the soil of inadequacy, a seed of distrust, watered by works. And then I focused on artificial light instead of the clarity of the brightness of the sun, of the real sun. So these things really, really set me up. So I want to go back to the main question that we started with. Why would God allow this to be so? And I think to answer that question, because I had that question of God. Like I know I rushed and I picked this guy, but why would you allow this to happen? And at the end of the day, it's found in 1 Samuel 8. We read it before, but listen to it again. I'm going to start at 7. God said, "Do everything they say to you," the Lord replied, "for they are rejecting me, not you. They don't want me to be their king any longer. Ever since I brought them from Egypt, they have continually abandoned me and followed other gods. And now they are giving you the same treatment. Do as they ask, but solemnly warn them about the way a king will reign over them." The reason why God allows this to happen is because God has to show you your own heart. Okay? He has to show you what's in your heart, and he has to show you the fruit that's being produced by the soil and the seed, the water, and the light that you're shining up into the ground of your heart. He has to show you. Why? Because, well, if you don't, you'll actually continue to be in a cycle. You will continue to make the same decisions over and over and over and over again. You may finally leave a bad relationship, but you will find that all other guys or all other women that come to you have that same spirit. They are the same person in a different form. And that realize that it's not about who's coming to you. It's really about who is in you and what you're attracting. Okay. So it becomes an issue of what is in your heart. Okay. That's the real important thing. And God had to show me my own heart. And if he didn't show me my own heart, there was no way to uproot that soil of inadequacy. There was no way to uproot that seed of distrust. I had to work on these things to realize, like, God, you're right. There's an issue of, not trusting you. There's an inadequacy. The result of me examining my own heart was that I realized, Louise, God has a super amazing plan for you, and it is not dependent upon having someone else to help you accomplish that. What God has for you is for you. In fact, when he combines you with the right person, it's because that person is not going to stop you from fulfilling the course and destiny that God has for your life. I had to realize that God always had a plan for me. He wasn't waiting to connect me with someone to fulfill the plan. I'm on the journey. I'm on the track, and he's going to combine me with someone that's walking in the same track, in the same journey, but I'm still on my way. I had to realize that I can trust God to know me better than I know myself. And he's going to be able to put me with somebody that I never even thought was going to be compatible with me, but it completely works because God knows me. He created me. He designed me. So he knows what's going to be the best for me. And I've rooted these things in my heart. I really did. And the results were just phenomenal. Okay. They were truly, truly phenomenal. So I'm praying that you really sink in these principles that I spoke about and you really understand how these things can set you up to meet a King Saul. And it will leave with disastrous results. When you have time, please go read the story of how the story of King Saul happened, how he died, and just the tragedy that happened. And even go back and read all the other kings and see all the other tragedies that happened as a result of the Israelites demanding a king be over them. Now, God put this in my heart to say, and I really feel it would not be right of me to leave without saying this. So I told you that, the relationship I was in with my King Saul, it was about 6 months, but it felt like 2 years. It was pretty crazy. And it was only two things that I felt helped me get delivered from the craziness of that relationship and get me and allow me to leave that cycle. One, it was only the hand of God that allowed me to see clearly. He would open up my eyes. As things started to get pretty bad, I would start to be like, God, is this it? And because I had that heart, God would reveal to me, and I was open. And once I knew it really wasn't God's will, I was out. One, that saved me. But two, I truly feel that had I kind of violated what God wanted of me and allowed myself to engage in sexual intercourse with this person, truly, I don't think I would have been delivered from that relationship. I know we live in a very free, liberal, sexually liberated society. And I think sometimes a lot of that is a backlash to just the control and devaluing of people through the purity culture. And what I mean by that is that sometimes the church, unfortunately, has used this virtue and purity thing as a way to devalue people and make people feel like nothing. When I think there needs to be a better approach to it. That's not it. I know that when I have discussions with my husband, we want to raise our children a bit better. I would never want any of my children to feel like if they make a mistake that they are less in the sight of God. We are loved, and there is no sin that's greater than another. It's all equal before the presence of God. Whether you're a liar or you're a fornicator, it's the same thing, okay? And we all are sinners that are in need of grace. However, there are real consequences to some of this stuff. There are people walking around, I know, with just demonic presence and spirits on them. And when we are exchanging, we're like exchanging spirits with them. When we decide to go against God's commands, and not that it was easy. God had to really hold my hand, but I determined that I love God more even than I love this man. And that's the only thing that kept me. God had to keep me. But that's just to say, because I feel like this man was truly sent by the enemy to derail my destiny, I felt that if I hadn't fought to just stay away from that, though imperfect, though, if God hadn't kept me, I don't know if I would be here today. So that's just a warning that, for anybody that's asking questions like, is this important? It is. We have to have the right reasons for staying pure, and the church has not done a good job of putting forth the right reasons. But I'm going to say protection. That was protection for me. Okay, so I just had to say that, and I pray that whoever receives that, it is no judgment. It's out of love that I explain that I know without a doubt for myself. If I hadn't done my best to refrain with the help of God, because it's only God, it would have been a difficult situation to leave. It would have been a difficult relationship to leave. It would have lasted much longer than 6 months because there's something about sexual intimacy that binds people. So, anyways, I hope this has been helpful. Any questions or concerns, comments, or anyone that really wants to talk, because this stuff is a lot when it comes to singleness. Reach out to me. I'm here, and I'm praying for all singles. I'm praying for all singles that are trying to make the best decision for their life. I've been there and I understand, but I know that we serve a mighty God who will give you discernment if you really want it. If you truly trust him and really want it, he will give you discernment and he will show you the way. And you will find yourself, if you trust your love life to the Lord, you'll find yourself in a better situation than you ever thought possible. Okay, I hope to do a part 2 of this, because if we talked about Saul, we definitely got to talk about David. Okay, so anyways, have a great week. Love you guys. Bye.